Mom said, "You're not family anymore." Funny, she forgot who paid the mortgage. So this morning started like any other Tuesday. Too early, too quiet, too normal. I was halfway through my first cup of coffee when my phone buzzed on the counter. I almost didn't check it. I wish I hadn't. It was from my mom. The message said, "We changed the locks, Emily. Don't come back." No explanation, no heart emoji, just that. For a second, I thought it was a joke. Then I remembered, my family doesn't joke about control. The words hit like ice water. You know that kind of cold that doesn't hurt right away? It just numbs everything. That was me, staring at my phone, realizing that after 30 years of being the good daughter, I'd just been evicted from my own family. I stood there in my small apartment, surrounded by the quiet hum of the fridge, and it was the first time in my life that silence actually sounded like freedom, trying to break through the static. I didn't call her. I didn't even text back. Instead, I opened my banking app. There it was, the monthly transfer, $3,600. Automatic. I'd been sending it for nearly 4 years. House payments, utilities, taxes, groceries, everything. My mother used to call it family support. But it wasn't support, it was a subscription, and apparently the service just got canceled. So I scrolled down, found the little red button that said Cancel Recurring Payment, and pressed it. A small confirmation popped up. Transfer canceled. 2 words that felt heavier than every "I love you" they'd ever said. I leaned back in my chair, watching the sunlight crawl across the kitchen floor, and for the first time, I didn't feel panic. I felt empty. Not broken, just hollow in a way that made sense. Like my body finally stopped holding its breath after years of pretending everything was okay. Here's what people don't see about families like mine. The love comes with invoices. Every thank you is a receipt. Every favor turns into a bill. And when the payments stop, so does the affection. I used to tell myself it was temporary, that once my dad's business recovered, or my brother Jake got his act together, things would go back to normal. But normal never came, only more requests, more guilt. When I bought them that house, I thought I was saving us. I didn't realize I was building my own cage. They praised Jake for painting the walls and forgot to mention who signed the loan. "He's so responsible," Mom would brag at church, while I was the one staying up late making sure the mortgage cleared. There was this one dinner, I'll never forget it. We were sitting at Olive Garden, celebrating my dad's early retirement. My mom raised her glass and said, "To family, where everyone does their part." Everyone laughed. Everyone except me, because my part was footing the bill. I remember the waiter dropping off the check and my mom just sliding it toward me without even breaking eye contact with the dessert menu. That tiny motion said everything. It said, "You owe us." I used to think that being the responsible one was a badge of honor. Turns out, it was a leash. After I canceled that transfer, I just sat there. The coffee had gone cold, but I kept sipping it anyway. It tasted bitter, but honest. That's how I described that morning, bitter but honest. For the first time, I wasn't lying to myself. Then the second buzz came, another notification. Group chat, family circle. Yeah, that's what they named it, like a Hallmark ad. I hadn't opened it in weeks. Curiosity got the better of me. The first message I saw was from Jake. Guess she finally learned boundaries. Took her long enough. Then Mom, "Let's not be cruel, honey. She'll realize she can't do life without family." I laughed, out loud. A dry, ugly laugh that scared even me, because they were right about one thing. I couldn't do life with them anymore. So, I grabbed my jacket and stepped out onto my tiny balcony. Columbus was waking up below me, buses groaning, dogs barking, someone yelling at a delivery truck. Ordinary life. I used to envy that kind of normal. Now I realized I could have it too. I just had to stop funding my own captivity. I took a deep breath, the cold air biting at my throat, and whispered to no one. You forgot one thing. Because yeah, they changed the locks, but they forgot. I still owned the key to everything that actually mattered. That morning, I didn't just lose a house. I lost the illusion that I had one. And strangely enough, that felt like the first real win of my life. If you ask my family, they'd tell you I was always the responsible one, which really just meant the one who picked up the tab. I didn't grow up rich or anything. My parents ran a small print shop in Ohio that barely survived the pandemic. I was the first one to finish college, land a stable job, and move out. Somewhere along the way, helping out for a few months turned into 4 straight years of paying their mortgage. My mom used to call me her blessing, but blessings, in our house, came with billing cycles. It started innocent. My dad needed help catching up on property taxes. Then the roof leaked. Then Jake, my younger brother, decided to take time off to build a startup that never left the garage. I covered everything because, well, who else would? Every month, I told myself it was temporary. Every month, I hit confirm transfer anyway. I thought that's what good daughters did, keep the family afloat no matter what. Until the day I opened Facebook on my lunch break. I was eating a sandwich in my car when I saw it. A post from my mom, bright smile, perfect lighting, the new front porch behind her. The caption read, "So proud of our son Jake for helping us keep the family home. You make us so proud, sweetheart." My stomach dropped so hard I almost spilled my coffee. There were hearts, clapping emojis, comments like, "Jake's such a good man," and "You raised him right, Linda." I read it twice, then a third time. My name wasn't there, not even a thank you. I'd been erased from my own generosity. That night, I called my mom. My voice was steady, but I could feel something sharp sitting right under it. "Hey, saw your post. Did you forget who's been paying that mortgage?" She laughed, that soft, dismissive laugh she uses when she's uncomfortable. "Oh, Emily, you know what I meant. Jake's been helping with repairs and maintenance. You're too sensitive." I wanted to scream, but instead I said, "Right, repairs." Then I hung up and stared at the ceiling until 2 a.m., wondering when love turned into a PR campaign. A few days later, I got a call from the bank. "Miss Carter, just confirming, you requested to add a secondary contact, a Mr. Jake Carter, to your mortgage file." My heart stopped. No, I didn't. The rep sounded cheerful, like she was reading from a script. "No worries, it wasn't finalized yet. We just needed your verification." My hands were shaking. I thanked her, hung up, and sat in the dark of my office parking lot, trying to breathe. They hadn't just taken my credit. They were trying to take my name. You'd think that would have been enough for me to cut them off, but no. I still wanted to believe it was a misunderstanding. Then came the kicker, a $1,500 charge on my joint account with Jake, a card I'd forgotten even existed. I called him. "Hey, did you use my card?" He sighed, all fake annoyance. "Relax, Em, the kids needed new school shoes. I'll pay you back." "You've been saying that since 2021, I said. He hung up. 10 minutes later, Mom texted, "Don't make this a big deal. Jake's doing his best. Let's not fight over a few dollars." A few dollars. I sat there laughing like a maniac. Because to them, it wasn't the money, it was the expectation that I'd always fix it. I was their emergency fund in human form. The ATM with feelings. That weekend, I decided to test something. I didn't send the monthly transfer on time. Just wanted to see what would happen. By the 16th, my mom called. By the 17th, Jake texted. By the 18th, my dad emailed. The subject line said, "Payment," not "How are you?" or "Is everything okay?" Just payment. That was the day I stopped being sad. I started getting curious. I printed 4 years' worth of statements. Mortgage, utilities, credit transfers, Venmo payments, everything. Sat at my kitchen table with a pen and a bottle of cheap red wine, circling numbers, making notes. It looked like chaos, but it felt like clarity. Each line was proof of how long I'd mistaken guilt for love. Around midnight, my phone buzzed again. It was an email from my grandpa Henry. He'd seen the Facebook post too. The subject line read, "Emily, you don't owe anyone your peace. No lecture, no pity, just that one sentence." And somehow, that was the permission I needed. So I started documenting everything, every receipt, every message, every call. If they wanted to treat me like an outsider, fine, I'd act like one. No more blind trust, no more, "It's just family." I wasn't angry anymore. I was calculating. And that's way more dangerous than angry. Funny thing, once I stopped funding the drama, I started seeing it clearly. The manipulation, the jokes that weren't jokes, the "you wouldn't understand, you're single" comments. They all made sense now. I wasn't the daughter in the story they were telling. I was the sponsor keeping the show running. And deep down, I knew one day they'd regret underestimating the quiet one who knew where every dollar came from. Because if there's one thing my job taught me, it's that numbers never lie. People do. And I was finally ready to show them the math. You know that saying, sometimes you just have to let people show who they really are? Yeah. My family had been auditioning for years. I just finally decided to stop pretending I didn't see the script. 2 months after the lock text, my mom turned 60. Big milestone. The kind of birthday that comes with catered food, rented chairs, and fake laughter that echoes off the walls. I wasn't invited, obviously, but then Grandpa Henry called. "Your mother's having her party at the church hall this Saturday," he said, in that calm, measured tone of his. "You should come," I laughed. "Pretty sure I'm on the blacklist, Grandpa." He chuckled. "Maybe, but sometimes, Emily, the truth needs a witness." That stuck with me. So Saturday came, and I drove out there anyway. I wore a navy dress, simple, nothing fancy. My hands were shaking the whole drive, but not from fear. It was that weird mix of dread and clarity, like walking into an exam you've already studied every answer for. The parking lot was full. Through the big double doors, I could see the lights, hear the clinking of glasses, the chatter. My mom stood near the cake, smiling like a politician at a fundraiser. Jake was beside her, arm around her shoulder, holding a mic. "Let's give it up for my mom," he said, grinning wide. "The woman who made me the man I am today." People cheered. My stomach turned. I waited until he was mid-speech before walking in. The room went silent, not in shock, but in that awkward, "oh crap, she actually showed up" kind of way. My mom's smile froze halfway through. "Emily," she said, voice tight. "What are you doing here?" I smiled back. "I came to celebrate, Mom. After all, I paid for the hall." There was a collective gasp, a few nervous laughs. Jake muttered, "Here we go." But I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I just walked to the front, set my phone on the podium, and said, "Before we continue the speeches, I'd like to share something, a little memory." Then I hit play. The audio filled the room, my mom's voice, clear as day. "She's not family anymore. She's just a sponsor." You could hear the clink of her wine glass, Jake's laugh in the background. Someone gasped. Someone else dropped a fork. My mom's face drained of color faster than cheap paint in the rain. "Where did you get that?" she whispered. I looked straight at her. "From the family you forgot I was part of." I didn't stop there. I pulled out a small folder, bank statements, receipts, proof of every dollar I'd sent. "For 4 years, I paid for your mortgage, your bills, your precious new kitchen. You said I was family then. What changed? Oh right, the moment I stopped paying." Jake tried to grab the folder. "You're being dramatic," he hissed. "We were gonna pay you back." I laughed. "Really? Before or after you added your name to my mortgage?" The room buzzed with whispers now. Aunt Susan stared at her plate like it might offer an escape. The pastor shifted uncomfortably. My dad stood near the buffet, pretending to check his phone. The silence after my words wasn't empty. It was heavy, like the air before a thunderstorm. Then came the voice I didn't expect. Grandpa Henry's. He walked up, slow but steady, cane tapping against the floor. "Enough," he said. Everyone stopped. "I taught you better, Linda." My mom's lip trembled. "Dad, this isn't—" "Don't," he cut her off. "You took from her, lied about her, and then locked her out like a stray dog." He turned to me. "Emily, I've reviewed the family trust. Everything I own goes to you now. The rest of them can fight over guilt." The room erupted. Gasps, whispers. Jake's jaw actually dropped. My mom looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under her. I didn't say a word. I didn't gloat. I just picked up my phone, slid it back into my purse, and said, "Happy birthday, Mom. Hope it's one you'll remember." As I walked toward the door, Jake called after me. "You think this makes you better than us?" I turned, smiled. "No, Jake. It just makes me free." Outside, the night air hit different. Cool, quiet, clean. I stood in the parking lot under the cheap fluorescent lights, watching families leave in clusters, whispering. Somewhere behind me, I heard my mom sobbing. For a moment, I felt a sting of guilt, that old familiar pull to go back, fix things, make it right. But then I remembered her words. She's not family anymore. I got into my car, started the engine, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like driving home. I felt like driving forward. The GPS asked, "Where to?" I smiled and said out loud, "Anywhere but here." That night, I didn't sleep. Not because of guilt, but because of relief. It's strange how light freedom feels when you've spent your whole life carrying other people's comfort. They changed the locks. I changed the story. And in that room full of whispers, I realized I'd never needed their approval, just the truth. You'd think that after publicly blowing up your family at your mom's birthday, you'd feel guilty. But the truth? I woke up the next morning and it felt like someone had finally taken a boulder off my chest. No noise, no guilt, just silence, the good kind. the kind that hums instead of screams. For the first time in years, I didn't wake up to my phone buzzing with, "Hey, can you cover this?" or "The electric bill's due?" I just woke up to the sound of my coffee maker in the city outside. And God, it felt good. Of course, the peace didn't last long. By noon, the calls started coming in. First Mom, then Dad, then Jake. I didn't pick up. They switched to texts, paragraphs of guilt and gaslighting. "You didn't have to embarrass us. We were going to fix things. You're tearing this family apart." My favorite one? Jake's. "You really think Grandpa meant that? He's old, Em. He'll forget." I almost laughed out loud. Because if there's one thing Henry Carter doesn't forget, it's betrayal. 3 days later, I got a certified letter in the mail from a law firm. I braced myself for the worst, some dramatic lawsuit or another plea for attention. But when I opened it, I just smiled. It was a transfer confirmation. Grandpa had finalized the new trust. My name, my signature, every legal line sealed. The irony, the envelope had Family Law Group printed on it. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my wine. But here's the thing they don't tell you about getting justice. It's quiet. No confetti, no victory music, just a lot of empty space where chaos used to live. I didn't feel powerful. I felt weirdly sad, like I'd outgrown a house that used to fit. That weekend, I went to the local farmer's market. Something I hadn't done in years because I was always too busy. I bought fresh bread, some honey, talked to a vendor about starting a garden on my balcony. It sounds boring, I know, but it was the first time I bought something just for me. No guilt, no mental math about who else needed what. Just me. Meanwhile, the texts turned darker. "You'll regret this. You think money makes you better? Mom's sick over this." But I didn't respond. Every time my phone lit up, I just let it buzz until it died. There was this strange peace in not reacting, like starving a monster that only eats attention. Then came the last message, from my dad, of all people. He'd been mostly silent through everything, the eternal fence-sitter. His text said, "Your mother's sorry, we all are. Please come home for Sunday dinner." I stared at it for a while. For a second, I almost said yes. Almost. But then I remembered that sorry in my family meant, let's reset and pretend nothing happened. And I wasn't interested in pretending anymore. So instead I sent one message back. "I already am home." That night, I sat on my tiny balcony with a glass of wine, looking at the skyline. The city lights flickered, sirens hummed somewhere far away. And for the first time, it didn't feel lonely. It felt earned. I thought about how much of my 20s I'd spent apologizing for being successful, for wanting peace, for not fitting into their version of family. And I realized sometimes distance isn't cruelty, it's clarity. A week later, Grandpa called. "You holding up okay?" he asked. I told him I was fine, that I was finally sleeping again. He laughed softly. "Silence suits you, kiddo." I smiled. "Yeah, it does." Then he said something that stuck. "You know, Emily, some people mistake peace for weakness. Don't ever explain it to them. Just live it." After we hung up, I walked around my apartment, looking at all the little things that were mine. The crooked picture frame, the secondhand couch, the tiny basil plant trying its best on the windowsill. It wasn't much, but it was mine, paid for, earned, honest. And that's something no one could ever take or rename. The next morning, I got one final email from a lawyer, proof that my family had transferred back every cent I'd ever given. The subject line read, "Settlement complete." There was no satisfaction, no fireworks, just this deep, quiet knowing that the cycle had finally stopped. I deleted the family circle chat that day. One click, one confirmation, poof, gone. And in that tiny act of deletion, it felt like cutting the last thread that had kept me tethered to people who only loved me for what I could provide. People always talk about revenge like it's loud, screaming matches, slammed doors, fiery endings. But sometimes, the sweetest revenge is just living well, quietly, without them. They wanted silence from me. Now they've got it. It's funny how peace sneaks up on you. It doesn't arrive with a parade or a dramatic the end moment. It's just one quiet morning, you realize you're not angry anymore. You're not rehearsing arguments in the shower or checking your phone waiting for an apology that's never coming. You're just living, breathing, free. A few weeks after the trust was finalized, I moved to a smaller apartment downtown. It wasn't fancy, peeling paint, creaky floors, but it had sunlight, and it was mine. The first night I slept there, I left my phone on Do Not Disturb and woke up to silence so pure it almost startled me. I made coffee, opened the balcony door, and watched the city stretch awake. For once, I didn't feel like I was missing something. I felt like I'd finally arrived. Life after all that drama was weirdly simple. I started cooking for myself, going for runs, even joining a pottery class. One night, the instructor asked everyone to make something that represented where you are in life. Most people made bowls or vases. I made a lock, a single clay lock with no key. When she asked why, I said, because sometimes the best thing you can do is close a door for good. The class went quiet, but it wasn't sad. It was the kind of quiet where everyone gets it. About a month later, I got a letter. Handwritten, slanted, familiar, no return address. Inside was a photo of the old house. The lawn was overgrown, the home sweet home sign gone. On the back, 3 words, "We miss you." It wasn't signed, but I didn't need to guess. I stared at it for a long time. And for a second, just a second, I felt that old pull, that guilt that used to own me. But then I folded the photo, slid it into a drawer, and whispered, "Not this time." People sometimes ask if I forgave them. The truth? I don't know. Forgiveness isn't a light switch, it's a boundary. I don't wish them harm, but I also don't wish them back. They taught me what love shouldn't feel like, and maybe that's enough. A few months later, I visited Grandpa Henry. He was sitting on his porch, same spot, same mug of tea. When he saw me, he grinned. "You look lighter," he said. "Guess cutting dead weight works," I teased. He chuckled. "You know, Emily, your dad came by last week. He said you embarrassed the family." I rolled my eyes. Of course he did. Grandpa leaned back, looking at the horizon. "I told him something you might appreciate." I said, "Son, she didn't embarrass the family. She reminded it what integrity looks like." That stuck with me. Integrity. Such an old-school word, but it fits. Because that's what it was all about. Not revenge, not pride, just finally choosing self-respect over obligation. I don't post about it online. I don't tell people the details unless they ask. But sometimes, when someone says, "You're so calm, how do you do it?" I smile and say, "By stopping the payments." They laugh, thinking I'm joking. But it's true. Peace starts when you stop paying for other people's comfort with your own sanity. These days, I measure wealth differently. Not in dollars, but in mornings without anxiety. In friends who show up without needing anything. In nights where my phone stays silent, and that silence feels safe. So no, I don't regret what happened. They changed the locks, I changed my life. And maybe, just maybe, that was the first thing we ever got right. You know, if there's one thing this whole story taught me, it's that silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. For years, I mistook endurance for love. I thought keeping quiet, helping more, giving endlessly, somehow proved I was good. But the truth is, no amount of self-sacrifice will ever fix people who feed off your guilt. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't fighting back. It's walking away without explaining yourself. I used to think family meant unconditional loyalty. Now I know it also means mutual respect. Without that, you're just funding someone else's comfort at the expense of your own peace. What I learned is that boundaries aren't walls. They're doors you control. You get to decide who walks through them and who stays outside. And yeah, it hurts at first. You'll miss the idea of who you wanted them to be. But like my grandpa said, real love doesn't need to be bought. It needs to be earned. So if you're watching this and you're stuck in a cycle of giving too much, of explaining yourself to people who refuse to listen, stop, step back. Take inventory of what's truly yours. Your peace, your dignity, your name. That's your real inheritance. They never did apologize, by the way. And maybe that's okay. I didn't need their sorry to move on. I forgave them, but this time on my terms. If this story hit home for you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you love just to save yourself? Drop your story in the comments, hit the like button if it resonated, and subscribe for more stories about strength, truth, and the messy beauty of becoming free. Take care of yourself tonight. Peace isn't loud, but it's worth everything.